here's an engine I wanted for a very long time. This is a Lionel Legacy N&W Y6b. I think this came out around 2015, maybe 2014. I can't remember. But I got it 2 Yorks ago, April York this year, and I got a pretty good deal on it. You'll see why here. This engine had a couple operational and cosmetic issues to deal with, so this is what it looks like right now, but this video will show you how I got it to this condition, and we'll jump right into the shop and get to replacing the missing front dummy coupler. Front dummy coupler was missing, so I just replaced it with a Katie 749 long shanker here and used my Shoreline 5400 to get a nice center drill on it so it would fit right in that draft gear. Later on, I did cut off that simulated brake hose, and I guess if I ever want to use this for double heading, I could take advantage of having a Katie up front. This part was also missing on my model. It was snapped clean off and nowhere to be found. So I thought it was a good opportunity to try out my new resin printer to replace it with. So here's my Tinkercad doodle of the missing part. I kind of scaled it by eye, so this was the first attempt at coming up with a replacement part. So here's the first resin print attempt at making this part. This is what it looks like. It's uncured right now. These are the supports, so I'm going to snap it off here and test fit it. This first attempt is just to see if I got this even close by eye. And if you can see, I put a 1mm hole in the top because that elbow that comes out the top, I'm just gonna use a piece of probably like one of these guys, if I could focus, something like this. Let's cure it real quick, and then I'll just tack it on with some tacky glue. Okay, so I thought I was pretty close with that muffler attempt, or whatever this is. But I decided to kind of move some dimensions around. This little elbow that comes down into this other pipe into the boiler, I decided to move it in a little ways. And on the second and final attempt of this print, I don't know if you can see, it's actually through-holed. That's the one nice thing about this resin printer. The resolution's good enough that you can core these parts. So the idea was that I would drill out this original location here and then basically run a pin through the part. I just transferred that elbow from my first attempt to this one, but this is pretty much the final part. So on the second round, I printed a half dozen because it doesn't take any extra time. On the resin printer, the printing time is directly proportional to the z-axis height of the part plus your resolution. And I'm still printing at like 0.05mm resolution. It's good enough for what I need right now. So here's another look at that part, core it out. And it was kind of fun to doodle up in Tinkercad. I think I got it right, you know, by eye. I got some photos, took some myself. Had a buddy of mine send me some photos too. This is pretty much about where it's gonna live. I think it's close enough. The nice thing is I've got some spares if I crack this off from fumbling it around, but anyway, that's it for now on that. So here's our tender, and like the Locomotive, there's just a bit of cosmetic damage. This thing was involved in some kind of mishap. You see the side swipe through the lettering. We also managed to knock down a row of rivets. I don't know how you do that. It's underneath the seam kinda. So just a little bit of cosmetic stuff to deal with here. Right now I'm going to 3D print a Katy adapter that will be a bolt-on style, so I don't have to do any cutting or gashing on this thing. And so right now I'll just disassemble the tender and get that coupler off there. We'll get to take a look inside too. I was curious about these legacy soundboards. It looks like it's using the same amp as the old Rail Sounds 4, this LM4861M. It's like a little 1.5 watt mono amp to drive the speakers. Pretty cool. Okay, I got the electrocoupler out with all its hardware, so now it's time to move on to designing my adapter for the Katy. All right, let's see if this contraption works. I had a few mishaps here. I don't know why this was so difficult to make, but this is where I'm at now. You see there was a lot of subtraction on this part. All right, so here's the idea. This keeps me from having to cut or grind away any of the existing details or any of the parts on the truck too. So the original 3-rail mount is still intact. If I ever sold this to somebody else that wanted to put that back on there, you could take this right off. You see I'm using the 2 rear mounting screws for the tender shell to hold it in place. All right, so there's our Katy adapter. I think that's how we're gonna run. It's a bit of a contraption. Like I said, I started off with a bar that went across and then had to kind of subtract out a lot of material to clear the swing of the truck and these details on here. So, but again, I didn't have to cut or grind away at the tender or even drill holes through the frame, so it was one less thing I had to do. So I think that'll work pretty good. I'm gonna get ready to give this thing an inspection and a cleaning. Seeing how the previous owner was a little rough on this engine, I'd like to just go through it, make sure everything is in place. Traction tires look a little crusty. They're still kind of sticky, but they're pretty dry rotted. Lionel really likes their thick traction tires. If you look, man, that stands real proud over the tire there, basically. Maybe I'll 3D print some like I did for my K4 project out of some TPU. We'll see. I'm gonna go in here. I'd imagine I've got some smoke fluid cleanup to do, and I just want to give it an inspection, make sure it's all there. Gears look in good shape. You just need a little grease. Take care of that. So these are put together pretty cool. Lionel has done a few of their engines where the boiler top kind of breaks off with the upper walkway, so the seam is hidden underneath the walkway, and you get a really good boiler shape on some of their higher end stuff. Anyway, I did have one issue when this was running in reverse. It tended to hunt, and I think I found the source of that. We got a loose motor mount here, so I'm gonna tighten that up and see if I can inspect this rear gearbox a little more from over top. But here's how it's put together. I'm not like super familiar with these whistle steam smoke units and stuff. I know in my K4s they had a whole separate little smoke unit for the whistle steam, but I'm not that familiar with this arrangement. Kind of interesting. So let me get this motor tightened up. Well, that wasn't just loose. There were no screws in there whatsoever. So I'm surprised this thing even ran as well as it did, although it had kind of a hitch in reverse. That thing was just flopping around in there like a mackerel. So it's now secured, and I'm gonna maybe give it a quick test run just to test it in forward and reverse, make sure it performs like it should. I had to fish a couple of screws out of my collection here, and that's about where they live, between those two rollers. All right, so I'm gonna button it back up. I'm not sure if that was a repair. I'm not planning on running the smoke a whole lot, and in fact, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised this thing isn't completely smoked. You know, just dripping with smoke fluid inside here. So I do plan on weathering this. So I'm glad it's not overly smoked at one time. And we're gonna get it put back together. I feel like that's such a nice way to put together a die-cast boiler. You know, the seam is hidden underneath the walkways here. So, and bolting it back together, you don't feel like you're gonna pinch anything, so. It was kind of fun to work on this engine, especially compared to some of my crazy third rail projects. So, let's get it put back together, go give it a test run. All right, with that motor tightened up, it runs like it should. Just pulling a short passenger train just for testing purposes. Here's the real test. It had a little giddy up once in a while when running in reverse. I'm shocked it even moved at all. So I think we're in pretty good shape. I'm going to clean it up. I will attach the missing muffler detail here and get it ready for paint. So here's a couple more reasons why I got a good deal on this engine. You can see the damage here to the engineer side of the tender, pretty gnarly. Here's my touch-up efforts. I found my least abused small tip brush to just get some reefer yellow on there. It should be good enough. I'm hoping that when I clear over the sides here, we can kind of cover over those scratches. I don't know how. I don't know what this thing went through, but the previous owner managed to flatten all these rivets. I don't think I'm gonna bother trying to restore that. I'm just gonna paint over it, I guess. See what happens here. All right, so I have the Y6b out here on the layout, all weathered up. Just looking it over real quick from the fireman's side. Looks all right. Trying to resist the temptation to go back in the shop and tweak on it some more. Sometimes I like to tone down these streaks, but I might just let this fly. Here's my resin printed mystery muffler. I'm gonna bring it back in the shop just to clean up the wheels. And then maybe we'll do a little short run montage on it. I should probably address that traction tire. There's part of me that just wants to let it rot right off, but I think that's gonna come sooner than later, so maybe you ought to take care of it now. It's a good thing to do, you know, when your weathering's all done. That's just how it goes. I got Lionel's crank pin out. If you watch some of my videos, you'll notice that crank pin technology is a little different on each engine. Everybody seems to use a slightly different method. This is really common for Lionel, where the crank pin is actually like a shouldered bolt. But it's not unusual to see the same manufacturer use different types of crank pin tech. So let's see if we can get this tire out of here. Oh, that is nasty. Look at that thing. Boy, I wonder if I could flip this. I mean, it still got some elastomeric properties intact. But, God, that's really thick. Look at that. Good as new. I just can't get over how thick these are. We got some that look promising. When do they start making these tires so thick? I mean, what's the point of that? So what you're witnessing here is the, what I call the flossing method of removing your traction tires. Kind of the lazy man's way of doing it. I didn't want to take off all these rods. I think I'm going to have to touch up some of my weathering anyway. So I did flip this tire, but I don't know if I'm going to keep it. So I'm not happy with my traction tire selection, so I'm going to attempt to print one out of TPU. You may have seen this on my K4 video, one of them. So I'm going to try it again. I can't stand these overly thick traction tires. Completely useless. So this was my first offer. It's a little loose. I got one of the dimensions wrong. I think I just made it overall too big, but being that these are like 1 minute prints, I'm going to try some different dimensions. The tread width is good. Fits in that slot real nice. I'm just adjusting the outer and inner diameter for a snug fit. And I'm hoping that I'm able to floss it right in between the brake shoes without having to do any more disassembly. So once I get one fitted up, I'll print off the other three. You know, if I was really slick, I would have bought this TPU in like silver or clear, and then I could have had some stealth traction tires. So anyway, this is my second shot, and it seems to fit pretty good. The one thing I can't seem to avoid is this little bump here. That's just the nature of the print. I could knock it down a little bit, but let's just see if it causes me any grief. One thing I think that is cool about these tires when you're printing them up, since the printer prints in a circular pattern, it kind of makes what I envision as sort of a spiral of the material. So with the strain kind of running this way, the strands of the material are oriented correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and print the rest and see if I can floss them into the rest of these drivers. Like I said, the goal is to get away from this ridiculously oversized tire. I think this is just unnecessary. So let's see if I can get this one side in first. I'll continue to the other side. All right, I did notice this one. This is a very thin print. I ended up splitting some of the strands here, so I made another one just slightly thicker, so that inner diameter should fit on here a little more snug. And this is a 3-minute print now, so let's give it a shot. I think I like the way that fits better. It stands just a bit proud of the steel tire, which it should, I guess. I also kept that width just a little narrow, just to fit in that slot. So this is what I think I'm going to run with, this thicker one here. These were the second ones, and here's the one that split. Do you hear the Song of My People in the background? That's my other traction tire getting printed. So this fits in there pretty good, I think. Better than the stock one, I think. Alright. The longer something stays on the bench, too, the more it asks for attention. This was what was left of the reach rod. It was out of this socket here. And I gotta make a new one. So, alright. I found something in my metals drawer. I'll just paint that up when I touch up the rest of this. Alright, so I think that's it for the time being on the Legacy Y6b project. Wish I could have gotten to it sooner, but I hope you guys think that it was worth the wait. I really like this engine, had been looking for one for a long time, and they do go for a lot of money in better condition. Like I said, this one had some cosmetic challenges and some minor operational stuff, like with a loose motor mount and, you know, missing details. I haven't even gotten to talk about my Elegoo Mars resin printer yet, but that was what I intended it for, is to make parts like that. So again, I got to try my TPU traction tire experimental technology, and this is a pretty respectable train it's pulling, so we'll see how they hold up. And also got to use my Creality ender to make my now standard bolt-on Katy mounts. So cool engine. Next challenge is to find some N&W 50-ton hoppers for this thing to pull, and of course a caboose. I do have the Vision Line Class A coming, so I got to get busy looking for some N&W cars. So hopefully this didn't drag on too long and you found it interesting, and I'm sure you'll see more of this engine in the future.